Welcome to Life on Purpose, where we talk all things health, wellness, and living your life on your terms. I'm your host, Brandy Eilert. I'm a holistic health and wellness coach and creator of Brandy Eilert Wellness, where I help women with adrenal fatigue and chronic stress live a more holistic, purpose-filled life. You can find my content and services at wellness360coach.com/Brandy-Eilert. You can also find me at Brandy Eilert Holistic Wellness Coach on Facebook or Brandy Eilert Wellness Coach on Instagram. Now get ready to learn how to really live life on purpose. Welcome back to the Life on Purpose podcast. I hope you guys are all doing well and enjoying maybe some nice weather. I know ours has been a little bit better, less rain, more sunshine, so that's great. But we've had a bump in the road. It's been kind of wacky here at the Eilert house the last few weeks, or the last few days, I guess. My kids are now on their, I think, fourth quarantine from school for contact tracing. It's a bit nutty. We're all trying to be online at the same time, multiple different schedules, and then also having a 3-year-old at home. So it's a little, yeah. I know you guys, you can feel me on that. I know. So I had to, it was one of those times where I had to be like, okay, I can't do it all. I had to say no. There was one day I was just like, I cannot get anything done that I need to get done today. I was supposed to record an ad for the Hashimoto's Academy, which I don't know if I mentioned to you guys that I am now working with Justin Janoska over at the Autoimmune Revolution as a coach there for the Hashimoto's Academy. So you guys jump over, listen to that episode first. And then go check out that website. I know so many of you listening probably are dealing with autoimmune issues, maybe some health issues. So yeah, that's some exciting news. I probably should re-record my intro to add that. But anyway, so yeah, we were supposed to record an ad, and I had to text him and just say, look, I have got a 3-year-old here that is absolute, like, batshit crazy because his siblings are now home and he doesn't understand that he has to leave them alone while they're on their Zoom calls and trying to get their work done. I had Zoom calls that day. So I reached a point where I was just like, no, I can't. So yeah, the Eilerts took a day off that day, but I know, you guys kind of, this has been a crazy year. You guys feel me. I know. But yeah, so when my stress kind of gets to that point, I can feel it, and I know that I can't deal. So yeah, we took a day off. But what's interesting is that my stress levels kind of throw my hormone levels out of whack because of my autoimmune issues, which is really interesting because today's guest, we're talking all things hormones. So yeah, so when I was looking for guests to come on and talk about these topics that are so kind of confusing and prevalent, hormones is one of those that, especially women, we're just like, it's so prevalent. There's fertility issues, there's cortisol issues, there's thyroid hormone issues. And it seems like you can't throw a stone in your own neighborhood and not hit 5 women who have at least one of those issues and can't really seem to get a handle on it. So, I mean, hormones are your body's chemical messengers. They travel in your bloodstream to tissues and organs and help them do their jobs. I mean, growth and development, metabolism, sexual function, reproduction, mood, all of it. And it's kind of like this epidemic amongst women that we don't have a lot of answers other than drugs sometimes. And I mean, you all know how I feel about kind of relying on pharmaceuticals and whatnot that just kind of mask the problems. So I wanted to bring somebody on who had kind of a handle on more of a natural approach to getting to the root cause and to kind of dealing with these things naturally. So today's guest is on a mission to kind of educate. She wants women to understand their bodies, and to really kind of empower you, put your health into your own hands. So Dr. Heather Rhodes is a holistic pharmacist with a passion for women's health. She makes understanding your hormones simple and teaches you practical steps for maintaining hormone balance. Her natural approach to healing creates lasting results and symptom relief specifically for PCOS, PMS, acne, and fertility. She's a CrossFit instructor, ice cream addict, toddler mom, and adoption advocate. We cover so much in this interview, guys. I hope that you get just as much out of it as I did. I mean, we could have probably talked for hours. She was amazing and a wealth of knowledge and a wealth of information. So I will add all of her details into the show notes, and you guys go visit her page, go visit her social media sites. There's, so much information. So here it is, guys, my interview with Dr. Heather Rhodes. Dr. Heather Rhodes, welcome to the Life on Purpose podcast. I am so grateful that you're here to talk all things hormone health, women's health, PCOS, fertility. This is a topic that I haven't really covered on my show, so I really appreciate your time.
Oh my goodness, of course. I am so glad to be here. Those are all of my favorite things, nerdy as that sounds.
Well, it's funny you say nerdy, but we all have a reason that we get here, because you kind of have this really interesting backstory because you are a pharmacist, right? So you're kind of in this natural wellness world as it relates to kind of fertility and hormones and PCOS, but you didn't get there overnight, right? You kind of have this backstory. Can you talk about that just a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. It is really interesting that I'm like an anti-drug dealer. When I worked in the actual pharmacy, I was always like trying to get my patients off of their medications, and bosses and corporations and businesses are like, that's not good for business. And I'm like, yeah, but it's great for patients.
Right.
Yeah. My journey. Okay. So I started working primarily after pharmacy school in a residency with patients that had like metabolic conditions. So diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, a lot of times obesity came alongside of that. And one thing I started to notice there was like, man, we're doing a lot with medications, but patients want more. They want to know how to get better. They want to know why they're in the situation they're in. They're meeting with nutritionists every week, and what they're being told obviously isn't working. They're not able to stick to it. It's just clearly not working.
Mm-hmm.
So that just kind of like sat with me and sat in my mind. And at the time I was on my own health journey, and it was very focused on weight and exercise and accomplishment. It's almost like I stopped pharmacy school, and because I wasn't getting graded every day, I decided that I would grade myself through measuring my food and my weight and how far I could run and how fast I could do it. It was just kind of a combination of personality and environment. And so like that took all of my focus aside from work. And we went through an interesting part. I went through a couple of interesting pieces along that journey, some disordered eating, some body dysmorphia, some binge eating disorder, like all of it kind of culminated through the 5 or 6 years that I went through that. But at the tail end of it was our fertility journey. And I had not had a cycle. I had gone through, multiple months, a couple of times, depending on where my weight was, where my period just basically went away. And we know now that that's called hypothalamic amenorrhea, where like you just don't have a period because your body's under so much physical stress. And so, but every doctor I went to was like, you're fine, just take some birth control. And I was like, I don't want birth control because I don't want a period. If I don't have to have it, this is great.
Wow.
Until you want a baby, right? So I just felt so stuck when it came to fertility because I didn't feel like I was getting the answers I needed. I felt like I had 15 minutes to talk to the doctors. They weren't actually walking through things with me. I didn't understand why we weren't getting pregnant. Like none of the dots were being connected. And I felt really stuck and frustrated and like, this can't be how we are made. Like this can't be it. And I remembered thinking like one day while working with patients, and it's like this light bulb moment of like, did God really design us to have bodies that function great until we get to like 20 something? And then all of a sudden they fall apart and we have to have chemical substances the rest of our life to survive. And I was like, this doesn't make sense. Like, I know so much about how the body works and how it was designed that like, it doesn't make sense that we have to be on these medications the rest of our lives. So that took me on my own journey and the fertility piece of really diving into the research, figuring stuff out for myself, reading books, just really chasing this alternative option of, can my body heal without being dependent upon a medication? Can my body heal and my fertility be restored? And can I use food and lifestyle changes and supplements and herbs and a lot of natural things to get it there? And the answer tenfold was yes. And I started to realize in this, like, oh, wow, there were a lot of things that I never even knew were happening in my body that once I started allowing it to heal, got so much better. So I'm just like, hey, I want a baby. But then in the meantime, my periods get lighter. My mood gets better. I'm not losing my mind every month. I don't have anxiety. My sleep is better. My acne goes away. And I'm just like, how is all of this possible and sitting there and women aren't getting the chance to tap into it? So lo and behold, that spurred my just journey into natural medicine and then providing it for women. And I used to do it inside of a clinic. And I realized that doctors are amazing. I have so many friends that are doctors, but when they started recognizing like, oh, you know about hormones, you know about PCOS, you know about fertility from more than prescribe this, we're going to send all our patients to you. And I was flooded with patients in the doctor's offices. And I was like, man, what is happening here? And it's that the doctors aren't given, most doctors aren't given the tools, the information, the ability to even tap into this whole other side of things. So they just do what they know and what they're taught, which is prescribe medications and tell women it's normal and give a lot of birth control and whatever it may be. And it's not every doctor, but even the best doctors, the doctors that I know like genuinely wanted to help patients, they just didn't know what to do. So they just sent their patients to me. And that's when I realized like patients want to get better. They want these options. It's there. And it's not that the doctors are just like, you know, being puppets to big pharma. It's that they truly, that is what they are taught and told. And the idea of doing something different would be very, very hard for them. And so I like to bridge that gap.
It would almost be like going against your religion a little bit.
Yeah.
Because this
exactly.
is the education. This is, you know, this medication for this symptom. And we're going to do that. We're not going to dive any deeper. And you're right. There's this gap, not only in kind of the women's health, fertility aspect of health, but also in kind of the autoimmune realm too, kind of these deeper issues that we're not going to just mask. We got to get to the bottom of it.
Yeah.
Right. And so filling in that gap is imperative. And like you said, and I say this a lot on my show too, this is nothing against traditional medicine. It's about trying to get traditional medicine to catch up.
Right. And can we do both? So it does feel almost like, I mean, I don't want to say I've been black sheeped, but I will say that like in the pharmacy community, the people I went to pharmacy school, the school I went to for pharmacy school, all of that. I mean, it is just so strange that my beliefs and my practice and what I have learned has been applied in such a different way that it does feel a little bit like, yeah, she's great. But I can say like, call it crazy, call it whatever you want, but my patients feel better. I have women whose lives are literally changed after they have spent years trying Western medicine and it not working. And so, it's not, I never tell people like, don't do this, don't do that. I just say like, hey, this is how this stuff works. You can do that alongside this, it's very practical of like me really diving into how our body works. And I know that so well from pharmacy school, which has made it such a blessing. I went to it, but able to combine that with like, if we know this is what the drug is doing to fix the symptom, what if we went deeper and figured out, okay, well, what could we do to stop the cause of that symptom? And then could you pull the drug away if it works for you, if your doctor agrees with it, you know, et cetera.
And shouldn't that be kind of the goal anyway? Who wants to be on drugs for the rest of their life? Because you said something very important that I kind of wanted to go back and touch on, is that in your 20s and 30s, our bodies are not supposed to break down that fast. We are not supposed to be reliant on synthetic drugs in those early years. I mean, because think about how long that could potentially be.
Yeah.
You know, life expectancy is in kind of the mid 70s. Wow. You
Yeah.
know, wow,
Yeah.
to be breaking down that early, which has always led me, because I'm kind of I want to know why. I'm a why person. I want to know why this explosion of chronic disease, you know, in people my age and people your age. I want to know why all these fertility issues in the last couple decades. I want to know, you know. So
Yeah.
I kind of like to dig deeper in that aspect of what in the world is going on and how can we fix it. And
Yeah.
obviously what we're doing in the traditional realm is not working, which in itself could also be why you're kind of blacklisted too, because nobody wants to feel like, oh damn, I'm not you
Yeah.
know, what I'm doing isn't working and what she is doing isn't, you know, or is. And yeah, that kind of probably feels a little yucky.
Yeah, and it's the perfect storm, right? So we
Yeah.
have this development. So I used to write clinical trials. I did that previously. And we've had this development of prior to big pharma and drugs essentially becoming the standpoint of westernized medicine, doctors made decisions based off of research and studies. They were very different from the types we have now. Patient experiences, trial and error, a lot of stuff. And so we had this like huge boom of companies that could pay for tons and tons of research. And now the thought is to go against those types of studies and that type of research is incredibly dangerous, incredibly unsafe, and I get that in a capacity. However, when you follow the money, as we do with anything, we see that could there potentially be some bias, some disruption, some basically creating a bubble of how we are treating patients, and all of it is coming from where the funding's coming from, and there's not a ton of people out there funding studies on fruits and vegetables, or a ton of studies on, you know, pulling plastics out or whatever. And you actually hit the nail on the head of like, why would we, how would we want to become dependent on medications our whole lives? Well, we could follow the money. Who wants us dependent on medication?
Right. And there's actually many times if you do follow that, you have studies funded by the very companies that are creating the drugs.
Well,
right.
and
So it's kind of like this unethical.
Yeah. No other industry would allow this. So like the textbooks that are at the medical school in the area that I work in for pain management are produced and paid for by one of the leading pain pill manufacturers. And that would never be allowed in a different industry. So
absolutely not.
Yeah. And it's terrifying, but I can see the whole other side of it of like, it is terrifying to feel like, I experienced this with my kids. So you even mentioned like our bodies break down at like 20 or 30. Girl, the numbers of children under 18 being given prescription medicines to take every single day are the number of children under 6 is like terrifying. But I think about anytime something's wrong with my child and I want to do a less conventional strategy to, you know, tackle it, utilizing holistic things, lifestyle strategy, diet, do some stuff. But the pediatrician, we have a very amazing holistic pediatrician. So I love that I have her. But even with her having that mindset, feeling like, okay, but should I just do this? But should I what if I don't? And then like all of this happens and it's my fault and I was wrong. And I mean, there's so much. See, I was actually telling my husband this yesterday. You try to convince people of something that's right or wrong based off of like beliefs or money or morale or whatever, and you'll get 50-50. 50% of people will believe you, 50% of people won't. Right. You try to get people to do something based out of fear, you'll get almost 100%, because that is the motivator. And that will even cause someone who knows 100, there are things I know like so deep of how the body works, 100%, like this is what the answer should be. And I still doubt myself and I still doubt my options because I always have that what if like right there, because that's all we're fed all the time.
Correct. And especially in this day and age when there is all this fear going around, it can make you feel a little powerless. However, also on the other side of it, and kind of you and I probably operate very similarly in our homes with, I have multiple kids, but with my children and with your child, with kind of going that more natural route first, and then kind of, if it's something emergent or something's not working, and then kind of, other options.
Both together works.
But correct. And there's this need for this integrative approach. Sure. Because again, that's kind of how the body naturally works. But, again, you feel kind of like crazy when this isn't mainstream. When, you've got all these people coming at you that, well, that's irresponsible. And
in like a time zone right now, or time period right now, a season where people, it's like this new discussion topic, like things my husband gets asked at work. And I'm like, since when is it ever okay for someone to ask a personal question about what you've decided to do in your medical decision making? Like, it's nuts. And again, like I don't think we've, as a society, have lived in a time where it is this,
everybody's broadcasting their medical choices.
And asking about yours and putting pressure on yours, and like you don't even get the chance to, and then there's judgment too, right? So like someone who doesn't know the story of why you're making the choice you're making still places judgment based off of their perception and their fear on your choices. And that is a really dangerous place to be.
I completely, absolutely concur. And there's I don't know if you've read it, Biochemical Individuality. So the idea that we are all very biologically different. So, and this especially pertains to pharmaceuticals. So a pharmaceutical that you put in your body may work chemically different in you than it would me. So the kind of these blanket treatments seem awfully irresponsible.
Right. And it's interesting because before, a couple years ago, and this is still something that's kind of on the forefront, but you're not hearing much about it because of all the things that are on the forefront. But I did some work in pharmacogenomics, which is basically the study of someone's genes and how their genes will break down the drugs they're given. And that was kind of this new thing of like, well, we want a patient's genome in order to decide what medication they get and all of this stuff. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we have this much information. We're mapping people's genes.
Yeah. And
we're still using it to figure out what medication they need to take the rest of their life, instead of using it to figure out, and you can definitely use it. There's nutrigenomics and all types of stuff you can integrate that into. But it's almost like we started realizing, there are so many biological differences. We need to capture that. And then there's been a lot of distraction from that since then.
Right. And that's a very interesting topic because, if we're going to be completely honest here, I think we both know what we're talking about as far as the vaccine that's out there and everybody kind of making their personal choices. And I'll be completely honest, like my personal choice is it's not going to work for me. Because I know my body inside and out. I know what triggers inflammation for me. I know that even like after, because I have chronic autoimmunity. So I have both Graves' disease, Hashimoto's, and then I have adrenal issues that I battle more than both of those. And any little thing will trigger this kind of flare up. And so anything that is going to rev my system up is just not going to work for me.
Yeah.
But if you say that, you're being irresponsible and and you're right. And I think this is such a personal thing. Taking any kind of drug, knowing your body is a very personal thing. And I think that then leads to the fact that we all need to really understand our individual bodies.
Right.
And, your realm is understanding our female health and how we work. And I, I've read through your notes a little bit. We've kind of lacked this education a little bit and not educating ourselves or even educating our daughters on how we work.
Yeah.
So let's kind of dive into that just a little bit on how important it is to kind of understand how we operate
Yeah.
so that we can better nurture our female health.
Yeah, I think that's huge. And that's a big piece, I think, for women, and why we end up being underserved in health is because not only are, again, like, we're not educated on it, um, we don't get the chance to be educated on it a lot of times, right? Like, everything we're taught is like, hey, here's how to not get pregnant, and here's what happens to you every month, and here's how you take care of that so that you remain socially appropriate, right?
Right.
And so that is so hard because I see women at 20, 30, 40s that basically are having things that are a result of not getting that information when they were 15, 16, 17,
Yeah.
etc. And we have this entire, so that's a whole other piece of it is as women, we have this entire hormone system. So you're talking about, adrenal system and this like really core. So we had to like rank how our body functions.
Yeah.
Adrenal stress system's always going to be first priority, everything, because that's what keeps our heart beating. And if our body does nothing else, it will keep our heart beating, and it will fight literally till death to keep our heart beating. So when our adrenal system gets hacked, quote unquote, or out of balance or dysregulated because of, a culmination of things or possibly a specific trigger, then we a lot of times start seeing symptoms, and then we start the cascade. But the problem with that is the actual cascade that's happening is you disrupt an adrenal system, and now you disrupt a female hormone system, and then you disrupt a digestive system and a mood system, and et cetera, et cetera. And so as women, we really have like three things that our body is always trying to do that's different than males. So our body's always trying to keep our heart beating using that adrenal system.
Yeah.
The second thing it's doing is always trying to reproduce. A female body is always trying to keep ovaries safe, keep reproductive organs safe, keep reproductive function optimal and balanced, etc. That is very different than anything that happens in a male body.
Right.
And so a lot of times we look at things like research on diet and exercise, things like research on immunity, things like research on mood, antidepressants, and diabetes and obesity. And majority of those are done on either females that are not actively in a reproductive state or in males, basically. And so when we think about all of that, it's like, oh, wow. So if I've got this entire hormone system that I can utilize to feel better,
Right.
to help support my body, but I know nothing about it, then I'm really missing this key piece to actually seeing results. And what we end up doing instead is piecing together all of these little parts and things that we research that Google tells us should be working for us, or is going to fix our hormones, or is going to balance our hormones, or is going to let the weight come off, or, fix our periods or whatever. But they're not actually being applied and integrated with how our female system works and what turns it on and off and what causes the imbalances and what shifts hormones out of balance. And once that's happened and we're out of balance, it's dysregulated, it just takes intentionality to come in and re-regulate. But a lot of times what women are taught to do to re-regulate are to shut the system down, which is birth control basically, or that it's normal and they just have to live with it, or that basically will give you a lot of medications to treat those symptoms, but never actually shift the hormones back into balance.
And you said a couple of really interesting things there. The fact that we need to understand that all these systems work together and we can't look at them individually. And I think that that's one of the disservices that we do in the traditional side of things is we separate all these systems. So we're looking at them not as a whole, but as these systems that are all attached to one another, this whole picture. And also the fact that, and this is just kind of me and the way I've always kind of thought, I had a really bad experience with birth control. And I remember thinking at the time, like, this just doesn't feel right. Like, why? Really? We're just going to kind of like mess with our hormones like that and not expect that there's any kind of long-term effects. But then you have to know that there are other choices to prevent birth if you're not ready for a baby. So there's all, you kind of touched on a few different things there. That's how does birth control work within the body, to mask all these things that a woman may be experiencing?
Yeah. So when we have that reproduction system. So every month our hormones are cycling. So every single day of every single year of every single month, your body is moving and shaking your hormones to get to these peaks and falls at certain points in the month to establish optimal fertility. When a woman is sitting with optimal fertility, usually she doesn't have a lot of symptoms. So a lot of times when we're balancing hormones, we're really just restoring your fertility, because that's the state your body wants to exist in, is optimized fertility. That's when your digestion is the best. That's when your weight is the best. That's when your mood is the best. It's all in alignment with this core design and function that it has. And so when we bring birth control into the picture, what we're essentially doing is telling the body, hey, you're going to get estrogen and progesterone every single day. And because our body is always trying to find patterns and do the most effective, most efficient, utilize energy, utilize resources, utilize food, utilize everything in this like optimal efficiency, it says, oh, well, if I'm going to get this every day, why would I make it? So it actually turns down your body's production of your female hormones.
Yeah.
The problem is that synthetic birth control requires a lot of things to be able to elicit a response that is similar to your body's natural hormones. So we think, oh, we take birth control synthetically on a graph. It shows that our hormone curves happen the exact same way as if we are not on the birth control, minus this small piece of ovulation, right? So that's kind of what the science behind it is. It's like, oh, we can prevent ovulation, but still make their hormones, give them the minimum amount that it needs to still function. So like they won't, lose their female organs. All of those will still function. But what happens there is we have to have a gut microbiome. So our gut bacteria has to be able to break down the synthetic hormones appropriately. Our liver has to be able to package up and metabolize those hormones and get them out. And then we have all these other pieces, things like histamine, which controls immune response, things like serotonin, which control mood. And then, so those pieces all interact with estrogen and progesterone, but not the synthetic estrogen and progesterone, right? So they may have mild interaction, but it's very, very different. It's like going to McDonald's versus going to Ruth's Chris, right? Yeah. So when we have all of these symptoms from birth control, a lot of times it's because we've got this McDonald's version of our hormones that's supposed to be helping regulate things and keeping us from having anxiety and making sure that we can still sleep and keeping our mood from being absolutely crazy. But because we have this kind of like crappy version of it and we don't even know how much we're absorbing or metabolizing or breaking down, or if it's accumulating, then a lot of times we end up with worse symptoms than before we even started the birth control, right? Because some of the big side effects of birth control are a result of your body missing out on a lot of the extra benefits that high quality, natural made from your body hormone gives you. So that's,
Well, what's interesting is, I mean, at a very basic level, our body, it knows what to do, right? It is made to know what to do. Why not trust that? Why mess with it? What can the long-term effects of, let's say, long-term birth control, what can those have? And is that a piece of kind of this bigger fertility issue that we're seeing?
Yeah. So what I think happens as to like why we can't trust it and why. So it takes work. It takes intentionality, it takes work, and it takes a lot of education and teaching. Yeah. I think we just live in a system, in a culture, society, etc., where we want the quick fixes, and a lot of us don't have the time to, well, let me rephrase that. I think a lot of times there is a battle of time and resources available in the medical community, and how much time do we have to teach women all of this stuff? And most doctors' offices would say zero, because they're in a system where they don't have time in general. And then we have this kind of idea that most patients don't want to do what it takes to get better. But a lot of times that is looking at it from a standpoint of patients that are suffering and want to feel better. And so when we tell them like, oh, well, you've got to clean up your diet, and we give them all of these overwhelming things, like, no, they can't do it because they're in the middle of a fight or flight response.
Right.
But if we can give these small, simple, intentional shifts of things they're already doing, that's going to support the natural healing and rebalancing. So just as much as you said, like our body always wants to get better. This is why my work creates, and I call it my work. This is why, I mean, I guess it's the work I do, but it doesn't even feel like mine because I don't design bodies to work like this. But the reason my clients feel so much better so quickly is because their body does the work. When you add that intentionality, when you give that support, when you make those small, simple shifts, your body has to respond just as much as it has to respond to birth control. We know how the body works, so it has to do it. The problem is it's a lot longer game. So you don't get immediate results. So it takes longer. It takes more consistency. A lot of times it takes pushing through some mindset battles. So when we start doing some of this healing work, sometimes other symptoms pop up, or sometimes we see things like a change in weight, or we see things like a change in like grocery bill because you're buying a little bit different types of foods, or it takes more time to make foods, or whatever it may be. And people start to feel like it's not worth it because I'm not seeing the results.
Yeah.
But I always tell people, like, if you just push through, you'll see them. You have to. The problem is we want immediate results
because we've been conditioned to get them through drugs. Right.
And we want them based off of like what we do for a couple weeks, a couple days, et cetera. And that's how we assess it. But there's pieces to that are inaccurate too. So what your body does and how it responds to the changes you give it is a direct reflection of how much you've changed before. Yeah. So if you've been a constant dieter, if you've done tons of medications, if you have, just done a whole lot of stuff to change everything about your body over and over and over again, then yeah, if you do 6 weeks of something, it's thinking, yeah, she's done this before. Like, we're going to hold steady. And that's a protective mechanism our body has to keep us safe. So it's really good. It's there. It's just that we forget, like I tell someone, like, if you've been dieting on and off for 10 years, then your body's going to need more than 2 months to start trusting you that what you're doing, you're not going to just stop in a couple of weeks.
Well, and what's interesting and what I like to remind, like my coaching clients is that it took you a while to get here. It's going to take you a while to start to feel better because you probably didn't notice what was happening along the way. And you may not notice right at first the changes that you're making to your body now, but you will.
Yeah.
You will, because like you said, your body knows that it's what it needs to do to heal, but you may not see those results right away.
And we're so conditioned, like you said, like I was thinking about this the other day. I had a scab on my leg and like it was itching and red and like it was just kind of healing and like that process. But like I don't cut my leg off and go get stitches because I know like, well, my body needs to there's all this stuff happening underneath I can't see. Right. So like it's pulling in cells and it's getting everything it needs to make the scab and to make the skin and like whatever. I don't see all of that. So what I'm seeing every day is like, I think it's getting smaller. I think it's getting better, but I don't know what's really happening.
And then one day it's like gone.
But I've gone through the process enough to know, I know this scab's going to heal up and go away. Sure. The problem is with women, because we've been so underserved and no one's taught us about our bodies and we don't know all the things that are going on behind the scenes, it is very easy. Basically, our whole perceptions, I feel like, are built off of the information we are getting, which most of the time is being fed to us by billion-dollar drug company and diet and fitness industries. Sure. And like those industries make tons of money. They have tons of money. They do tons of marketing, tons of messaging, and literally millions of us, that's all the information we have and know. And like we think, oh, I should eat apples. They're super healthy. Or I should eat bananas. They're super healthy or whatever. And they may be, but are they for you? I don't know. Right. So,
and it's this huge disservice because it goes back to what we said before is that we are all very different. This diet, quote unquote diet, may work for this person who is, blasting all over social media that this is, the best diet in the world. And look how much, look how good I look and how good I feel, etc. And it may be total garbage for you because your cells don't operate the way that person's cells do. So it's this huge, like you said, it's kind of this huge propaganda campaign that we all are feeding into, when really the education is right here.
Yes.
If you
Yes.
get to learn your body in and out, that is the probably the most empowering thing that any woman can have, person, man, even,
Yeah.
can have, because then you know how you operate. You know then what's best for you. It takes a lot of kind of trial and error. But once, like you said, once you understand how your body works, you know what direction to go in.
When I tell people all the time, like when you're investing in something like a program or one-on-one support or learning, so I will never put out a program that doesn't teach women how their body works, how their stress system works, how their female system works, because that is information that will literally change everything about your choices for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And like that, I think is so important. And that is actually what should be in the funded sex ed that we're all given and taught, right?
Right.
And it's not, but the piece to it is too, that as women, we have this thing that's very, very unique and different than men. And that is that most of us have very deep rooted, strong intuition.
Oh yeah.
And we have it for our kids all the time, right? I think we silence it for ourselves. So we, again, like when you grow up and you see the Instagram and you see your doctor tell you it's normal, and you see that you actually don't have heavy periods when you take birth control, and you see that, you know, whatever it may be, you just kind of start to create this new story and this new thought in your mind that your intuition was wrong. Of like, well, nothing was wrong with me. The doctor said I'm normal. Or, you know, maybe like that was really the problem and I just need to take birth control forever. Or maybe if I could do this, if I had more discipline, then I could look like Sarah on Instagram or whatever. And so it's like we shut that whole piece of it down too. And when we can, as women, like really sit and apply both the information about how our body works with our own intuition and our own information about how our body works, because you'll never be more of an expert on your body than any other person in the planet.
Right.
It's just that you don't know how to use that information. You don't know how to tap into it. You don't know how to use it. You don't know what to look for. It's just that just like driving a car, like you just have to learn it. You just have to learn it and then you can do it. But if someone down the street who doesn't drive your car every day came over and was like, oh, well, this is how you're supposed to drive cars. All cars are the same. They all drive like this. You'd be like, mine doesn't. Like, I don't have that little thingy that you have. Yeah, like it's very, very different.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing. If someone came and tried to tell you how to parent your child, you'd be like, no way. Like you might take, so now we have like a parenting coach, like you might take someone else's advice and say like, what's happening in their brain? What's happening in their behaviors? What is the root cause of why they're acting this way? Mm-hmm. But you then take that knowledge, you apply it with what you know and trust about your child and how they are and how they respond, and then you make decisions. Right. As women, that should be the healthcare we deserve. That is not the healthcare we get, and that's not the healthcare we pursue unless we're actively pursuing, I need to learn my body, I need to learn my hormones, I need to learn how this works so I can combine it with my own knowledge of myself. Yeah. And I compare to our kids all the time because I think that's something so many of us as women can relate to, of like, no way. If someone told me to do something that I knew wouldn't work for my kid, I don't care who you are, I'm not doing it. Like I mean, and most of us feel like that. We should feel the same way about our hormones. We really should. Of like, if someone's telling us to shut down an entire system that we've tried before that doesn't feel good, we know it's off, we know something's wrong with it, and someone's like, it's normal, don't do anything. Like we should be like, no, I'm not. I am going to do and pursue what I feel so deeply in me is my next step.
Yeah. And it's interesting you say that. My personal experience with my health issues was very much like that, because I had a doctor telling me all these things that didn't make sense to me, because I knew what I was feeling. And I knew that, you know, I was being told that I was depressed, basically. Yeah. When I had all these other things, once I started digging deeper, that were going on, that, you know, where it was not depression. I'll say that. Yeah. But I just remember being like, no, we're going to figure this out, because that's not it. And I know that's not it. And I don't care how much you're telling me that's it. this feels different. This feels very different. And that's where so many women are then transitioning to these more holistic, integrative methods of treatment and healing. So I want to jump into PCOS because this is something that I don't know a whole lot about, and I have a lot of questions on, and I think other women do too because it doesn't get diagnosed often. It kind of gets missed, and it's very misunderstood. Correct?
Yeah, it is. So there's kind of what I like to call almost like two camps of PCOS. So you have that is very clear, very diagnosable. Everybody gets, not everybody, but most women get the diagnosis of it. If they're actually figuring out what's going on, because it can still be missed even in that case. But
Okay,
there's
so
kind of like, yeah, go ahead.
what are those symptoms of like the very traditional PCOS
Yeah. We
diagnosis?
usually see that combined with something like prediabetes or diabetes. We see that combined with cyst on ovaries or cysts being ruptured constantly. Usually there's a weight struggle. So your body's really resistant to losing weight or you're gaining weight really quickly. A lot of times we see that happen with issues with fertility. So because your female hormones are off, your ovulation is off. Sometimes a lot of times they have very irregular long cycles. And then we can see these like kind of not temporary, but these more traditional symptoms of acne or hair growth along the chin or jawline, as well as hair loss, and symptoms of like high testosterone. So if you were going to go to the doctor and they were going to say, oh, you meet the criteria to be diagnosed with PCOS, it would require high levels of androgen, which are DHEA, or testosterone, the presence of cyst on your ovaries via ultrasound, and there's one more. So issues with irregular periods, duh. So I was like, wait,
the big one.
yeah. But what happens is most diagnosis criteria will either say you have to have all three of those, or you have to have at least two of the three, or if you have cyst on your ovaries, you have PCOS. So there's kind of like not this generic board that says like, this is how you get diagnosed. There's kind of some variances in how you get diagnosed. But if we think about two of those pieces, ultrasound showing cyst on ovaries and lab work showing high testosterone, most of the time, no one's spending the money. No doctors are recommending you spend the money, or their, practice is spending the money to dive into that unless there's a reason. So unless you're pursuing fertility, unless, there's some reason, or they've pushed you to it, or they're doing a workup for prediabetes, it usually gets missed because a lot of times they're like, it doesn't matter. Like, we're going to do the same thing, whether it happens, whether you have it or don't have it, basically. But then I also think there is this pseudo PCOS, so PCOS is a very transient type of condition, meaning like you can go in and out of it fairly easily. So it's kind of like acne. So we have people that have like genetic linked, like very specific acne they battle their whole lives. That would be like that traditional PCOS camp, right? But then there's other people, like some of us have acne that shows up some months and then it goes away, or sometimes we have it and it's really bad and sometimes it's not, and we get like breakouts. We have specific triggers for it that cause us to break out. That's kind of the same thing that happens in this other side of PCOS, where you may not have fertility issues, you may have had regular periods your whole life, but something has induced a season of PCOS, which is just an ovulation disorder, and our ovaries are changing every single month. So 1 month you may have this lack of ovulation, this PCOS type presentation, and then 2 months later, not have it at all. Yeah. So because we know the triggers and the types of PCOS and all of that, we can I think people think they either have PCOS or they don't. And I like to say you can have it and you can have symptoms and still not have a diagnosis, but still go in and out of it.
So what's interesting about that, and I kind of deal with this on like the autoimmune side, the autoimmune thyroid disease side.
Yeah.
It's interesting to me that the label is important when really is it important, because all it really leads to is the fact that you've got an imbalance that's affecting a specific area of your body. This one being fertility, kind of your female hormones, etc., and or in like my case, thyroid hormones, kind of adrenal function, it doesn't necessarily matter what you call it, right? And I
Yeah.
think that's really important for people to understand. It doesn't really matter what you call it. You've got an imbalance that we need to get to the bottom of so that we can start to get everything to functioning together.
Right. I totally agree with that. And I think too that like I like to say that PCOS really just means you have sensitive hormones. There's some women that can do whatever, they can handle loads of stress, they genetically don't have a predisposition, their gut is amazing, and they don't have sensitive hormones. They can do whatever. I mean, we all know those girls, right? Like they can, what we think we know them because we don't actually ever truly know what's happening in someone's story. But it looks and appears like their hormones just never play a role. And they have regular periods and everything's just dandy, right? But then I like to just say like, well, PCOS just means you really just have sensitive hormones. And what it actually is an ovulation condition where you don't ovulate for 1 month, for 6 months, for 12 months, whatever. Something has happened to where ovulation has been shut down.
Yeah.
And there's all types of things that can shut it down. But if it is a hormone imbalance that has shut it down, we could call it PCOS, we could call it hormone imbalance, like whatever you want to call it. But the problem is you didn't ovulate. And there's a reason for it. And usually in PCOS-like symptoms, all of that, what has happened is that ovulation has been shut down because of an overactivation of the stress system or a dysregulation in estrogen's ability to be metabolized or an accumulation of heavy metals. There's all these kind of like different things that could have caused it. But it really just means that because of these other things going on in your body, your hormones are more sensitive and they've gotten out of the correct balance at some point or another. And that very much like floats in and out of the interaction with thyroid and hypothalamic amenorrhea and autoimmune conditions, like all of those kind of intertwine together. It's not a lot that you just see them exist completely separately.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about kind of what's happening that so many of us are dealing with these issues, either these autoimmune issues, these hormone issues, these fertility issues. What are some of the specific areas that when you're working with a client that you particularly look at that are affecting people? Because they're going to be different for everybody. And I think that's important for people to understand. There's not like this one formula where there's this one thing that is causing autoimmunity or there's one thing that's causing fertility issues. What are some of the overarching issues that you see that are a disservice to our bodies?
So what I've found, especially in the world of hormones, is we kind of have these two separate areas we can get support. Westernized medicine, which we've talked about a lot, or you can go into the functional naturopathic type of medicine. What I see happen though is on one side, westernized, you kind of get dismissed. You don't really get solutions, you get band-aids, whatever. And that's a generalization. So not everywhere, not everyone. But you also could make a similar generalization around naturopathic medicine of now we dive insanely deep. We know everything about every enzyme, how you break down every acid, every heavy metal in your body, and it becomes really overwhelming. And you're on like thousands of dollars of supplements and you're eating nothing. And like, it just becomes this totally separate tornado, right? So I actually like to help women sit in the middle a little bit of like, okay, what are some of the first like 10 things we could do to get the most bang for your buck to help shift things back into balance? Because the thing is, if you've got a body that wants to go back into balance, what if you only need to change like 2 to 3 things and you don't need thousands of dollars of supplements and to redo everything about your life? So when I look at that, some of like the huge, like big bang for your buck changes that I see, I usually start with like 3 to 4 areas. One of them is nutrition, gut health, liver. How are you breaking down estrogen? What are the foods you're eating? How are you stabilizing your blood sugar? Can we do anything to lower inflammation? All of that good stuff. And then I look at movement and exercise, because you usually have people that either come in and their exercise routines are just blowing their stress hormones out of the water, or their exercise routines aren't doing anything at all because they're just not really moving or not utilizing it. They're not improving insulin response and muscle response to insulin and all that. So it's usually one or the other there. And then I look at supplements.
Either over exercising or not exercising at all.
Yeah, typically. And then or you're doing the wrong type of exercise because someone told you should be doing, maybe you're not overdoing CrossFit, but you're still doing CrossFit. So that could be a piece of I'm a CrossFit instructor, which is terrible that I said that. But and then so there's supplements, but I think supplements should be supplemental. So that's, one piece of it. And then this other overarching piece is because we know the number one reason women's hormones get jacked up is the overactivation of the stress system, then we've got to look at how are we handling stress. And when I talk about stress, I'm not talking like, oh, you're stressed out because Sally down the street is gossiping about you. I mean like, oh, your body is getting a signal day in and day out to be stressed. And it's by small things we're doing that are really common, really habitual, that are glorified in our society, the hustle culture, working on our computers late at night, blue light activation, not getting enough sleep, issues with how we're handling emotions. So I always tell people like an example of a perfect hormonally balanced human is a toddler, right? Like they don't have a ton of inflammation. They eat whatever they want. One day they want only blueberries. The next day they want to punch you because you gave them blueberries. Like they very much are following exactly the signals their body gives them.
Yeah.
They haven't tried to change and implement and shut down those signals because of what society thinks is acceptable.
Yeah.
They feel an emotion, they show it. It gets released right away. And that's it. So their bodies aren't even holding on to the emotional stress that all of us do, right? And so that's a huge component of it, of like, we're going through our days stressed out, annoyed, angry, having all these emotions and shutting them all down because we either are in public and we have to just tell ourselves to deal with it and move on, or we are in front of our kids and we want to teach them and model for them and all of that good stuff. And I even find myself doing it a lot of times to my kids. If we're in a store and they're screaming and losing their mind, I'm like, shh, like be quiet or don't do that or you're fine. I say you're fine.
All those emotions.
Yeah. I think I say you're fine all the time. And like what I've really been working on for them and even myself is like, feel it. You're okay to feel it. You're okay to feel whatever you feel right now. And that actually helps our cortisol system tremendously, because now we're not adding the emotional and mental stress to the already ever prominent physical stress of simply living in bodies that have been the same and are completely designed to live in what we would call Paleolithic times, right? Like no artificial lights. We had to go hunt for our food. We had to move every day. When women got their periods, they got to go sit in a tent and not take care of
rest.
Yeah. And so the problem is we just live in bodies that were designed to function in that way. And it's the total opposite of how we have to function now to be quote unquote normal. So I focus on all of those areas and find what you're doing in your day, where these big things are prominent, and then just tell you to make these simple shifts.
It's really interesting that you're talking about kind of this intangible piece, this thing that you can't really measure, that's having this huge effect on you physically. And I mean, I have a personal story. I was diagnosed, with autoimmune issues and adrenal issues back in 2016. I did a lot of work, lifestyle. I worked on my stress a lot, changed my diet, and I was feeling good for like the last probably 3 years. And it hit me probably 2-3 months ago, maybe even longer than that. And I could not get a handle. All these things were spiraling again. So, my adrenal issues, kind of these anxiety episodes. And as soon as I would lay down in bed, my heart would start to race, and kind of these blood pressure issues where I would get up and I would just, feel lightheaded. And I knew exactly what was going on. I knew exactly what was happening. And for me, my issues are stress. And when I'm not dealing with it appropriately is when all these things kind of spiral out of control. And I am also a perfectionist, and I'm completely aware of it. And when I feel like I'm out of control, which this world has felt out of control this last year, it's affected me physically.
Yeah. Oh,
and sure. So I try to explain to people like, look, this is a huge piece that needs to be learned how to be handled, and knowing how to take care of those things You can do all the physical things in the world. You can take all the supplements, you can change your diet, you can do all these other things, but it's that intangible piece, or even dealing like with past traumas. Things like that are hugely important in your physical health.
Oh, for sure. And like I tell people when we talk about sources of stress, you have basically like environmental sources, we have social sources, things like that. But literally every thought we have, every single thought, our body is deciding what to do with it. And do we activate stress system or not activate stress system with every thought? So that an example of this is like if you're driving and someone runs in the road in front of you, you slam on brakes immediately and like your heart starts beating and all of that. Nothing physically happened to you, but that thought of you knowing what was about to happen, right? The difference being that that is just as much of a stressor as if you put your hand on a hot burner and immediately pulled it off and had a stress response to that.
Right.
So it's like we have these, one is very tangible, you feel it, you see it, your body responds with stress. One is very intangible. For the most part, it's only tangible when our heart, like when it gets to that like level 10, right? So I like to think of it, if we were like looking at a thermometer, let's say if it, you only feel it once it gets above whatever your normal body temperature is. So let's say your normal thermostat level is like 98, right? Well, if it's 99 outside, well, you'll be hot regardless. But I'm just thinking like, if, you know, you get something above that, then you start to feel it.
Yeah.
Something below that, you start to feel it. But if you're just sitting in where you normally exist, then we don't really know that any of that is happening behind the scenes. And one of the things I love to do is just like bring awareness to that, because you may have 5 thoughts that increase you by like 1 degree. And then that 6th thought puts you over the edge. And now you think that the reason you're over the edge is because of something you ate or your hormones or whatever. And it's like, well, actually, it's just, it wasn't that one thought did it. It was that there's a pattern here that's happening all the time that's rising that thermostat. And we have the ability to turn down or to turn it up. But what feels normal to most of us, what like our normal ranges, is very, very high stress activation. And I would ask a ton of the women I work with, like, are you stressed? And they'll always say no. And then when I start looking at the things that are stressing their body out day to day, I'd be like, oh my gosh, your body thinks that you're waking up every day and running from a bear and needs to shut everything down because you don't have food, you don't have water, you're running away from a wild animal. Like your body thinks you are literally living in like a Jumanji video game right now.
Yeah, because I mean, like that constant fight or flight, if you don't ever turn it off.
And we don't know how to do that. We're not taught how to do that.
I mean, your bucket's going to overflow. I mean, if you're constantly stressed, eventually it's going to tip over. And that's kind of how, you know, I picture my own body as this bucket, and, you know, we've got to do things to kind of release that valve every once in a while, because you're going to get to the top and just overflow. And for me personally, like I know when my overflow moment is happening and I need to kind of readjust.
Yeah. And a lot of times when women don't know that perception and like don't know that about their bodies, they think that whatever made them overflow was the problem.
Yeah.
We think that we're putting in all this effort and we're trying to lower our stress and we're like doing all these things, but actually we're only catching that like one thing that caused us to overflow. And another piece that kind of complicates all of that is that there is very much a difference in things that actually lower stress hormones and lower and turn off our stress activation system and things that activate our dopamine system. So a lot of times as women, we consider them the same. We'll say like, oh, well, I run to decrease stress, or I sit on the couch and watch TV, or I scroll on Instagram. Like that's my me time. That's my moment. That's like for me, like that's how I deal with stress or whatever it may be. But that's not actually lowering any stress hormones. If anything, it's adding to your bucket. You're like still putting things in your bucket, even though you feel really good. The difference is that you feel really good because that reward center in your brain is being activated. So you're equating that with doing something that makes you feel better. The problem is that that's not actually lowering and taking things out of your bucket. So if you're not ever taught what to do to actually teach to take those things out of your bucket, to actually lower your stress activation, to turn down those stress hormones, you'll just continually do things that activate dopamine, which actually are making the bucket bigger.
So what are some of those tools that you recommend when it comes to that?
So I have a lot. I have an entire course on this actually.
Perfect.
Yeah, when the pandemic first started last year, I created this course. And so it's called Your Stress Strategy, and it maps through how all of this works and what's happening and what these strategies are. But I teach women how to, and inside of it, we utilize, again, the easiest way is to take the things you're already doing and just shift them. You're already eating every day. You're already moving your body. You're already thinking thoughts. You're already taking 5 minutes to decompress. So what can you do in those time frames to shift your body towards pulling out of that bucket? So like some of the pieces of that involve like stabilizing your blood sugar, making sure that your body is getting safety signals that tell it, hey, you can be calm, you can rest, you can restore. I have a whole section on there about self-care and how like we think self-care is like, I'm gonna go get a massage and my nails done. But actual self-care is taking care of yourself the same way you would take care of someone else. So I take this back to that toddler analogy of like, I wouldn't let my kid go all day without eating and have unlimited screen time and respond when their friends came and knocked on the door every 2 minutes. And, you know, like there's all of these things we do as adults or as women, as moms, that carry all of these roles to keep everything in the air, to keep juggling everything, that if we really sat down and thought about the habits and the things we do day in and day out, would we let our kids do those things?
Right. And the answer is a resounding no for most of us.
Right. Like,
yeah.
My kid can't go work out in the morning and then go back to the gym. And then like there's just things that I think we do that we think we're doing to be healthy and feel better and all this stuff. But when we think about it from like a very basic standpoint of like, what does our body need? A lot of times, you know, and we even talked about this a lot of most women don't know and they're not taught and whatever. But if you started with the basics of like, what do you know your kids need? Then if you gave yourself the same routine you give your kids, I bet you'd start feeling 10 times better without taking any course.
Right. I mean, and again, true health is very simple in general. Like it just really is. And obviously all these things, whether you see it in a study or not, are common sense things. You know, we are slathering ourselves in toxic stuff every single day. We're eating processed food.
On the go.
We're stressing ourselves out to the max. I mean, the amount of technology and like you said, blue light activity, all this stuff. It's just your system is bombarded on a daily basis, day in, day out, hour in, hour out, minute in, minute out. And it's no wonder that we have all of these chronic issues. So you're right. It's very simple on just what we need to do. It's behavioral at this point because we've done those things for so long, and trying to change them is difficult. And I think it would be doing anybody a disservice to say that it's easy to make changes.
It's
but
personality that we're missing. Yeah.
Right.
And I even in that, so I teach how to like turn off that fight or flight system.
Yeah.
And we use different like breathing exercises, or I give tons of options for all of them. Poses that you can put your body in that actually send signals to receptors that say you're in a vulnerable position. So then it turns down and turns off that fight or flight system. But I tell people like, you can actually use these for your kids too. Like teach them to your kids so they have that like long-term and ongoing, and really kind of allowing them to even understand and have that foundation laid of like things can be basic. To what you were saying, it's not easy because it is very countercultural, but it is easy because you're already doing things in the opposite way, right? Like if we just bring intentionality to it and say, hey, like you're already eating every day. Let's do it like this. Let's pair these things. Let's not take, I mean, it doesn't even require a lot of restriction. It's just like, hey, let's add, let's give, let's support. Let's kind of take these habits you already have and just shift them with more intentionality to support your hormones. And that's why, again, like women see results so quickly, not even so quickly, but like I want to say like so consistently, like
Sure.
everybody gets to feel better.
Right.
If you stick with it long enough and if you can just make those shifts, they build up over time too. And just like the bucket, you're putting things in, you're putting things in, you're putting things in. And then all of a sudden one day you reach this level where you feel different.
Yeah.
It's just you keep putting in until you reach that level.
Right. I mean, it can be looked at both ways. And that's a really good analogy. People always think, oh, I got to restrict, but really it's adding in.
Oh yeah.
Adding in. You're supporting, you're boosting, you're doing all these supportive things. So I think even just that minor mindset shift is super important when you're trying to get healthy again. So I want to wrap up this conversation. I want to hear your story and how, what you did, because you have an adoption story because you had some fertility issues. Do you have one or two babies?
We have two
babies now. Okay. I think I thought it was just one, but I want to hear how, like, your success story and how you are and what you did to get to where you are.
So so just kind of like backtracking as to where I think we left off was we decided this fertility journey. I started saying I never could get a diagnosis of PCOS. I never had cysts on my ovaries. Lab work always showed everything was fine and normal. I decided I'm figuring this out and taking it into my own hands. So I just started doing the things that I was learning could heal hormones and rebalance them and what to do if you have PCOS. And I basically was like, hey, I'm just going to pretend I have it. Right. Because again, PCOS can kind of be that like broad term that just packages in hormone imbalance. And turns out I did like crazy, because once I stuck with it and I pushed through, I got results that I had been working the 5 or 6 years that drove me into the imbalances based off of weight and body and goal and feelings and all of that. I ended up with those results anyways. It just took this interim period that was really hard. So I had to go through healing. I had to let my body restore. I changed my nutrition completely, even though I thought I was like the healthiest person ever. I was actually severely undernourishing my body, very, very depleted. I basically stopped. Like I said, I was a CrossFit coach. I was doing CrossFit twice a day, training for triathlons. And like, again, I thought I was the healthiest person ever. So silly when I think about it now, but stopped all of that and just really focused on like, I would do whatever it takes to heal. And I remember a lot of moments wanting to quit and being like, this isn't working, or I'm going to gain weight, or like, I don't even know if this is something I should keep doing. But I just continued to push through and was like, I'll do it till my cycle is regular, till my symptoms are gone, till, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And I realized on the other side of that, like so much more was possible. I could have clear skin that I like loved. I could still feel good and enjoy my life without having to attain a PR and some weights I was lifting off the ground, whatever.
Right.
And then my fertility was 1,000% restored. I had normal cycles, ovulation was on point. All my fertility hormones looked amazing. And it was a really, really amazing thing. And like, now it's just this totally, I still coach CrossFit, but they joke because I'm the coach that's like, oh, if it feels too heavy or you're tired today, don't worry about it.
Like, wait a minute, this isn't the formula we work in.
I'm healing hormones one workout at a time. But so, and then the other piece to our story is we actually ended up going straight into adoption before we ever even did testing, I had always felt that pull, and I even wanted to go towards adoption before we even tried biological conception, all this stuff. But we ended up finding out later on in our journey that we have a male factor component to our fertility journey. And so we kind of sit now with this understanding. We've never pursued anything further than that of, I know my hormones are balanced. I know how to make sure they're balanced. I know the signs my body gives me. I know what my ovulation is like. And whatever is happening with, my husband's stuff, we kind of decided said, like, how can we practically apply strategies to help the quality of, your sperm and your fertility,
right,
without going nuts, because we want it to be sustainable. Right. And so we just simply started activating that. And we really just sit with like, we just say like, God only needs one sperm. So we fully believe that he's got one that'll work.
Right. So you adopted 2 children, right?
We adopt both. Yeah.
And then, so you're leaving you're leaving any natural fertility kind of up to.
What we say right now is that is the season we are in, and if
Yeah.
it is meant for us to pursue something differently,
Yeah.
we will know, and that intuition, like we will be released to do it. We just
Yeah.
haven't, we're not there yet.
Yeah.
We don't really feel like the pursuit of anything right now is what we're supposed to do. So we're just going to keep holding on to serving our bodies, knowing our bodies, enjoying all the benefits of perfectly, I
Yeah.
won't say perfectly balanced hormones. I'm the same way as you. Like even last month, I felt like I know I had a breakout and I was just more moody. And I was like, what is happening? And sure enough, it's like I said, I went back and started coaching CrossFit again. And I was like, well, I've got to eat on the days I do CrossFit. Like I've got to start, if I'm going to do this, I know what to do to keep my body a little bit more balanced. So it's not even about having perfectly balanced hormones or perfectly balanced fertility all the time. It's about knowing how to adjust and adapt and what those triggers are and what you can do around that. And it feels hard and complicated, but it so isn't.
And that's extremely empowering.
Well,
I know, like for me, I think that it makes it less scary having these conditions when you know that you have tools to get them under control because you've done it before and you don't feel so out of control. And it's an empowerment thing. Okay, I know exactly what's going on with my body. I know what to do because I've done all the work to figure out what's happening.
yeah.
And that, I think, is what you've been saying this entire interview, is empowering women to understand their own bodies so that they can kind of take control of their own health.
For sure. And it is so, and I had this like eye-opening moment. This is the strangest story I'll ever tell on a podcast, but I basically like went a month and like nothing, everything just seemed so strange. And I was like, why are my hormones not like, why did I not ovulate? Because I track ovulation with like cervical mucus and that type of stuff. I was like, what is happening? I was freaking out. And I was thinking like, oh my gosh, I would be losing my mind right now if I didn't know like what to try, what to do, et cetera, et cetera. I ended up having, so I use like a flex disc for my period instead of like a cup.
Yeah.
And I had just left one in there for longer than should be in there.
Oh no.
I remember like it was that empowering moment of like, I knew it. I knew I was doing what I needed to do. I knew something wrong was like nothing. Like I was like, this is so strange. Something has happened. And then when I found out something did happen, I was so excited because I was like, my body, it's not feeling, I can trust it 100% of the time, all the time.
Yeah.
It was
That's really funny.
But so also an ad for the flex disc because you don't feel them. They're amazing.
Yeah, apparently you feel them or you don't feel them so much you forget they're there, which I guess is a good and a bad thing.
So God, everything was fine from it. It was just more days than it should have been.
Sure.
But I did really, it was like this moment of like, oh my goodness, what has gotten out of balance that is causing this? And then when it wasn't, and I was like, it's not like my body is so good at protecting me, at doing what it's supposed to do, it was still going through all the functions that it was supposed to. It was just like something else had happened.
And that's really reassuring. That is, it makes you feel like less out of control. Completely. Especially when you feel like you're being betrayed sometimes. Your body's betraying you. It feels like this betrayal, Yeah.
When actually everything that feels like that is just your body's attempt to keep you safe. It's just that we don't know how to interact with that or what that is or what those symptoms and
what to do with that information.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I appreciate you sharing, all of this and all of your knowledge and being brave enough. I especially appreciate people like you who are brave enough to see that there is this gap and to go in and fill it and to talk about it, because there's not enough people out there. And if there are, they're really difficult to find.
Yeah.
So I'm grateful. I'm grateful for your time, and I'm grateful for you sharing all of this with my audience, especially. And where can people find you and more on your programs and kind of your education and all of that?
Yes. When I want to tell you thank you too. I just love that you're using and allowing other women to stand on your platform and help empower women as a whole. So I am at Dr. Heather Rhodes on Instagram. That is where I hang out most of the time. And then my website's www.drheatherrhodes.com. And I do have a Facebook group that is called Hormones Simplified. It's a free Facebook group where we just go in and chat about hormones and
Oh.
questions, and I'm in there answering stuff. And we have to be super specific about medical advice and all of that, but it is
Sure.
still a good spot for women to just kind of grab some more info and chat more. And
probably support too.
yes. And realize, hey, we're all in this together.
Yeah.
On my website, there is, and I think we may have sent the link for you to link it for them, but I have a guide called Your Next Best Steps.
Okay.
And that really is someone who feels like my hormones are imbalanced or this resonated with me so much, I don't know what to do next. It's going to walk you through those first 3 things you can start doing to bring some intentionality to your nutrition, to your symptoms and your awareness of your body, and to how, you're integrating all of these intentional pieces of support.
Okay, fantastic. I'll make sure I have that link. And if I don't, I'll grab it from you, and those will be in the show notes. So thank you again, Dr. Heather Rhodes. I appreciate your time, and everybody head over to her site and Instagram and get some great information. So thank you again.
Thanks for having me.